There's a great new study out from the University of No Shit. Daniel S. Hamermesh, Daiji Kawaguchi, and Jungmin Lee published their findings in the National Bureau of Economic Research, and they found that laws shortening the work week make people happier. You see why I said it's from the University of No Shit? That does appear to be rather obvious. They say, quote, in Japan, the standard work week was reduced from 48 hours to 40 between the mid-1980s and mid-1990s by imposing a 25% overtime penalty after 40 hours of work. Korea also reduced its work week that way from 44 hours to 40 between 1999 and 2009 by extending its 50% overtime penalty. They found that, quote, when labor laws reduce the hours that people have to be at work, their life satisfaction increases. Again, University of No Shit. Because as we've discussed on the show before, I know that this is the case in the United States of America. I don't know if it's the same overseas. It might vary country to country. But here in the U.S., people overwhelmingly say, yeah, my job isn't really my passion. I just do it to pay the bills. So if that's a reality, which it is, well, then it's clear that people would like to have a little more time off to find their own passions in life or spend some time with their families or their friends or just relax or just, I mean, look, we're human beings and we all have certain dreams and hopes and wishes. And if you're stuck in a cubicle all week long, 50 hours a week, you know, it feels terrible. It feels like shit, unless, of course, you love your job. And there are a few people who love their job, and God bless them. Nobody's saying, hey, you can't, work as much as you want. If you love your job, by all means, work 7 days a week if you want to work 7 days a week. But what we're talking about is acknowledging the reality, acknowledging that a majority of people don't like their jobs. And since that's the case, we should be kind as a society and kind as fellow human beings, and we should say, okay, we get it. You don't like this. Since we're all adults, we have to sometimes do shit we don't like, so you're still going to have to work to pay the bills and feed the kids and do all that stuff. But maybe we should give you a shorter work week, or maybe we should give you more vacation time by law, paid, or there's other ways to do this thing that we call life. It's amazing how we've all essentially resigned ourselves to this idea that, no, that's just what life is. Like, okay, you wake up 5 days a week, you go to work. If you're in the U.S., maybe you're lucky and get a week off paid, and you just suck it up and deal with it, and then you die. And maybe you'll get to retirement, maybe, but that's even becoming harder for people nowadays. But it's increasingly as if there's no light at the end of the tunnel. And people should all understand and agree that, well, let's work for right now, or let's live for right now. And again, as I've stated on the show many times over, I'm not somebody who's, an anarcho-syndicalist, if you will, not to get too wonky on people, but Noam Chomsky's written about this, or I'm not somebody who's part of the zeitgeist movement that thinks we can essentially create a communal society and scrap capitalism completely. No, I think I'm rather pragmatic, and I think that the best society might be able to reach is this idea of a social democracy that we see implemented in the Scandinavian region. And again, I know I make this point all the time, but they have the best healthcare systems in the world. They have the happiest people. They have the best middle-class income per capita and the most vacation time, and the list goes on in all the areas that they kick our ass. And we can learn something from that. I don't believe in a utopia. I don't think it's possible, but I do believe in close to a utopia. And that would mean a hybrid system with the capitalism and socialism, and you get a lot of paid vacation time, and we can actually experience life in a way that we choose fitting, as opposed to being stuck in a scenario where you hate your job, but you're forced to be there the overwhelming majority of your waking life. Now, the counter-argument to this research would be, well, there's a causation-correlation problem. So in other words, if happiness increased at that point in time that they got more time off, that doesn't necessarily mean that the law was the reason or that the time off was the reason. And look, the causation-correlation point is certainly true to an extent. But the only problem with that is there's a very convincing control group that they had in this study where it's people who are small business owners who did not benefit from the laws that gave people a shorter work week, so they were working the same amount of time. So everything else being equal, okay, it turns out that the people who got more time off were happier. So I do think there's a connection, and if you say that there's not, I do think you're being a little naive, or you're purposely trying to be evasive and trying to weasel your way out of the relatively obvious conclusion of the report. So, look, man, we got to change it up. I mean, we have to at least do 6 weeks paid vacation by law. The United States is the only modern industrial nation that doesn't have paid vacation by law. That's a problem. That's not okay, and we're all miserable as a result of it. We need at least 6 weeks paid vacation by law. And actually, you guys know me, what I'm more in favor of is switching over to a 4-day work week. I think that's more than fair. The default position where the debate should start is people saying, well, let's do 50-50. Half the time you work, half the time it's leisure. I'm being even more conservative and more harsh than that. I'm saying, you got to work 4 days a week and you can be off 3 days a week. So I think that's more than fair. I think that's incredibly open-minded, and I think that's as close as we can get to a rational direction that we can do in the near future. And this is just another report and another study that proves that we are all overworked.